Hey, folks. Vic here with my co-pilot Skunk Manhattan, and you're listening to the Eclectic Soundtrax podcast, where we talk about really important topics like "Holy shit, I'm getting old. Everything gives me heartburn," and bathroom destruction. Make your own art. Tribute to Mr. Pollock there. So, speaking of art, our guest today is Mr. Donald Chapa, the owner and proprietor, curator of Comal County Rebels Art Gallery located in New Braunfels, Texas. Hey, man, thanks for hanging out tonight, Vato.
Oh, man, my pleasure. I know we've been chit-chatting about this for a bit. I'm glad you butchered the name of my fair city. It's a great true. Intro.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, say that again. What was said wrong?
I flubbed on New Braunfels. Or is that how you say it, or is it New Braunfels?
I have no fucking clue. They still give me shit. I put a Z or S somewhere. Yeah, so it's okay to curse on this podcast, right?
Fuck no, man.
All right. I'll watch my fucking mouth. That's horrible.
Yeah, man, we've been chit chatting about it. I know, I don't, maybe if some of the tens of people that listen to the podcast may notice, or maybe they watch it on YouTube and they see some of the stuff behind me. It basically comes from your shop. So, yeah, man. So, I know, we work together, obviously, and, not that people know that, but, we've talked about a lot of stuff, music, art, and I always been really fascinated with your journey and how how did you come up with that art gallery? Is it connected to like all your old hats that you used to wear back in the day? Yeah. So, I mean, if you can kind of just give us a kind of a background of how you started and how that idea came about.
Sure. So, that's, it really depends on like how far back you want to go, right? Because there's some connective tissue that kind of runs across, my life that kind of led us, my wife and my family to start the gallery here in New Braunfels. But really for, where I got into art, from growing up in a, small backwater Texas town on the Mexican border, there was not hardly any exposure to any kinds of art, much less, things like graffiti art or urban art or street art. Of course, we're talking about the, late 70s to mid 80s.
Right.
But, I was fortunate that I had, siblings and family members that had great taste in music. Right. And so, they'll listen to stuff like, Nazareth or Uriah Heep and, Zeppelin and Sabbath and AC/DC, and, their rooms always kind of smelled funny. Right. And so, you'd go in there and just kind of hang out, and, they would have these kick-ass posters and album covers, laying around. And as a kid who really, any type of visual, when it came to storytelling, came from comic books or plain old books. Right. It just really sucked me in. And having that connection with music and associating the two things together really kind of helped formed stylistically what, now is kind of what we're known for, right? For stuff that's kind of edgy. Right. Sometimes it's kind of dark. Sometimes it's funny and stupid. But really, looking at those old metal posters and album covers, and, there would be a dragon and a lady warrior and, a wizard, doing something to them. And, it was just crazy, and it just blew me away. Right. As a kid. And, as I got older, got into skateboarding, at that time, you couldn't necessarily, go on the internet, right? Because this is the 70s and 80s. If there was something that you wanted, right, like a particular band, you would have to go to some crappy record store and flip through a phone book, right, a catalog, and say, okay, I want to order this, or this. So you have to wait for it, right? And so there was always like the anticipation of like, hope, man, I hope I pick something great. But the upside of that, it forced you to be very selective, right? Because you didn't have infinity means, right? Like I couldn't grab the phone book and say, order me this, Mr. Store Clerk, this whole book. That's what I wanted. So doing that, getting my music in that manner, and wanting to really experience things that were not readily available, really helped me and some of my friends really have kind of like a very underground type of taste and very outside of the norm of where we live, right? It's the Rio Grande Valley, it's Tejano music, it's banda, it's norteñas, and nothing wrong with that. Right. Absolutely love that music, but we wanted something else.
Right.
So at the time, punk rock and skateboarding were very, very intertwined. But there was lots of folks that were doing the artwork for album covers or skateboard decks or a band's flyers that, nowadays are, some of the most successful contemporary artists around. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the old punk band Black Flag, right? They have the iconic label or iconic logo of the 4 bars, right? Right. Well, that guy is Raymond Pettibon, right? He kind of designed. They also did album covers for Sonic Youth, Minutemen, and all these great old punk bands. But that guy now, has pieces at like the Tate Modern in London, the MoMA in New York City. But his artworks have, skyrocketed in value. And, not really recognizing that as a teenager, but understanding that, this is some really cool shit. And those, that kind of subculture of being to skateboarding and punk rock, you'd sometimes find yourself, in a ditch or behind a building or behind an industrial complex, because you would go where the spots were, right? Right. Wherever the best, wherever you could skate as long as you wanted without having to get worried about getting arrested or pissing off the store manager or whatever. So invariably you're behind a building. And of course, there was always guys tagging the buildings. So back then, down there was mostly, gang stuff, right? So it was, La Clica or La Bomba or whatever, Chinatown, all the street gangs would write, their stuff on the wall, and it would also tell you some very important information, right? So there would be things like, so-and-so does this, all you got to do is give her a call. Right. So, there was always a way of the neighborhood knowing what actually is going on. But me and a group of friends who, we were just delinquent. While we were in punk rock, we had long hair, just because, we could. But we got the brilliant idea of coming up with a tag. And so we used to go around, keep in mind, we're teenagers. We're still fairly geeks, right? Because we were into sci-fi and Dungeons and Dragons and all this fantasy crap. So we were real into this movie that just come out, which is Tron. So like the original Tron. So we thought it would be funny because all the guys would, they would have names like El Mero Mero, El Chingon, or all this or that, right? So we just started tagging behind buildings and skate spots. Where we would put El Tron. And so, cause we would think like, man, some cholo or some vato sees it, he's going to be like, who the fuck is El Tron? Right. And so we had like this, we created a character, that he was basically like a cholo Tron guy. But yeah, so it just kind of always went hand in hand with me growing up of the music being connected to the art, being connected to things that weren't necessarily in your immediate vicinity as well. Fast forward, about 20 years and just getting a real job, so not flipping burgers anymore, making some decent amount of scratch and doing a little bit of traveling, and just getting exposed to more and more different scenes and different artwork. But like even being to punk rock down there, you would, subscribe to, Xerox magazines, punk rock signs. Right. And so knowing that, every different city or area or part of the country or the globe had its own little scene, in underground punk rock, that was also the way that you would, learn about bands, you'd find out about shows, you'd book shows and stuff like that. But then that was also the way you would find out about other bands in other cities. So once I started traveling, just kind of use that same kind of mindset to get into artwork. For like a commercial artist that like really kind of hit the sweet spot for us. When I say us, my wife and I, who've been married for 22 years, was really Shepard Fairey, in the early 90s. So Shepard Fairey, of course, came up with the iconic Obey kind of logo, but also the face of Andre the Giant, which was, kind of his trademark. And, just after years and years of traveling and collecting art, we just had put together a humongous collection where we had flat files just bursting with tons of art. And, we would have, we didn't have enough wall space at our homes to have all this great stuff up. People would come over for, parties, barbecues, whatever, and they would see it and they'd say, hey, where'd you get this? And where'd you get that? And finally, we just, my wife and I say, you know what, this is something that, potentially there's a business in it. So we were also at a point in our lives where we're starting to think about what are we going to do as far as a business for ourselves after we can leave our corporate gigs. Right. And, just, it seemed like a way for us to do something that we're both very passionate about, and being able to share, years of being into it and helping folks get into doing something as cool as like, buying a piece of art, there's, and for us, it's a, an honest way to make a living. That sounds kind of weird, right? We're not nothing against, slinging drinks for folks and running a bar or something like that. But, we're just selling little pieces of paper for folks to enjoy. But along that journey, while we're making that decision to start a business and kind of share our love for these artists and these different types of artwork with our community, there's little logistic things like, framing, right? Just something like, hey, how do we get this great piece of art onto the frickin' wall? Right. So one of the things we found out pretty quickly is that framing's pretty expensive. And it usually takes a long time, and it's customizable, but it's a lot of it is kind of one size fits all from a taste standpoint. So my wife actually took it upon herself to teach herself how to frame. Then we taught ourselves how to really do some basic woodworking and started making our own frames or purchasing vintage frames and really putting some elbow grease into them, some tender love and care, and then pairing them with some modern prints by artists that we like, and really helped us kind of hit a signature look, right? And that's kind of what we're known for. We're also, and we kind of do get a bit of a ding from some folks where they say, you guys don't have enough local artists, right? There's something that people say besides, editorial, right? Like, you got too many naked ladies, or that's too controversial, or why is there a skull on there? Or why is Jesus riding a motorcycle? It's
what?
So,
hey, I have a question.
Sure.
Again, so where are you located?
Yeah, we're located in the heart of downtown New Braunfels. Where I'm sure if you've ever gone downtown, you're familiar with a great bar called the Phoenix Saloon. So we are I mean, New Braunfels is a very small city. If you go downtown, there's like a great big restaurant called McAdoo's. We're right across the street from that. It's a little building that we share with a awesome bakery called Two Tarts Bakery. Good friends of mine. It's also a great bicycle shop in the same building. But we are tucked away. We like to say that we're New Braunfels' dirty little secret. Because we do tend to do things that you probably wouldn't associate with New Braunfels.
Yeah, I was going to say the reception that you've received so far from the local folks. I mean, it seems like they really like it because it's. I mean, like you said, it's nothing that anybody's ever seen before. So they're exposed to something new. So been getting a lot of really good press about it and from folks in the community, right?
Yeah. So there are some folks that are really big fans of what we do, and what we try to, there's one of the things that we don't judge you. Like, if we go to your home and you got a bunch of fucking, live, laugh, love, fucking wooden letters on your walls, we won't judge you, but we want to help you. It's okay. You found us right on time.
There you go.
Yeah. And a big part of that, is also, we try to have as much art as we can that's, relatively inexpensive, right? We want it to be very accessible to as many people as possible. So we can cater to, those high-end collectors that need these awesome statement pieces for their 6,000 square foot home out on the lake, right? But then I also got the college kid who just wants to get a kick-ass $100 rock poster, a vintage rock poster put up in their room. So we try to hit as many folks as we can, and really what it is, like, going back to the live, laugh, love, everything we sell is being curated by myself and my wife, and also my daughter, who's actually a financial. She's in the finance program over at St. Edward's University. So between the three of us, it's a good mix of slightly different tastes, but kind of riffs on the same theme, right? So we focus on urban art, graffiti art, rock poster art, and pop art. So those are really the fields that we play in. And, we like to bring artists into our gallery that folks may have not otherwise have known about. So when folks say, like, hey, you guys don't have enough local artists, and there's this guy over here, you should check him, it's really great. And usually my response is, you don't need me to know about that guy. That guy is right here. I know him because I go to the little art fair at the brewery down the street every third Thursday. Were you there? If you're not there, don't come in here to my store asking me how come I don't sell Joe Blow's art. He's right there. You should know him. Know your local artists. Buy direct, just like your eggs and your weed or whatever. You got to know. You should know where it comes from. So I try to kind of expose folks to artists from all over. For some reason, I know those two of my favorite pieces. The ones from Hanukkah that you have in your hanging behind you, Vic. The Netherlands, for some reason, I've just been obsessed with the Netherlands for a few years, and they just have some great artists. I am a bit of an Anglophile, so I do like British street artists and graffiti artists quite a bit. And here in the US, Austin has an incredible scene. But if you go to an art gallery in Texas or specifically in New Braunfels, you kind of know what you're going to see. I mean, what's something you think about, or what pops into mind? What do you think you would see on the wall if you go into an art gallery in New Braunfels?
Country stuff.
That's right. So there's going to be an Alamo.
Going to be some horns, right?
Yeah. Well, you probably won't see that at my shop.
Right.
it's really kind of hard to describe. I think Vic has an excellent backdrop of some of the stuff that we carry, some of the styles. But like, for example, what Vic has in his background, that great Princess Leia print, that's from a guy called Leslie Kuhn, who used to live in Austin back in the 80s and 90s and did flyers for everybody from like Soundgarden, Nirvana, Mudhoney, the Cramps, all these bands when they would come into town. So what happens to these guys is some of them start off doing gig posters or the flyers, and throughout the years built this fan base, and then they get recognized by a gallery or somebody in the art world and said, man, this guy is a really great artist. And they become a quote unquote contemporary artist or a pop artist. They're not just a rock poster guy. But there's so many folks that we love because we've been into them, because that's the way we started. Was I was the guy that would go to that show at Emo's or wherever, and I would be pulling the flyers off the wall. If it was something kick ass, I would just, oh man, I'm going to take this off. And I'd be there like a jackass, with a bunch of rolled up paper and not wanting to crush it at a damn punk show. But I still wasn't the jerk that would take the LP to the show to get the band to sign and then be, man, watch out, don't crush my record, man. I'm holding a record. But no, we really, what we want to do is just expose folks to different artists, give them the ability to, really celebrate what's unique about them and their particular taste. We do special order for folks. So folks come by and tell me, hey, I really love XYZ artists. If it's in our wheelhouse stylistically, we'll go out there and we'll get that for you, because we do curate collections. So I even have some venues, some businesses that come to me and say, I need to redo this whole space. Help me out. I just, and when we get something like that, it's very challenging, but a lot of fun, right? Because, you got to find out, like, like it's Skunk. If you came to me and told me that, all right, I'm looking at you, but I'm not going to make any assumptions about what you're into or what you like, because people, it's hard to, unless you've gone to somebody's house, you have no idea what they like or what they, So if you were to tell me, yeah, I'm really into, hot rods, or I like naked ladies, or I like, space scenes, I like, and it's sometimes.
What's that?
Those things together, that just so happens.
You got him.
I got a guy for you. So,
flying through hot rods in space. Yeah.
So, and really by just chatting with folks and kind of knowing what kind of makes them tick, what makes them happy, it helps us kind of zero it in and find something that's a good match for them. Of course, and always you got to ask, like, how much money you got, right? I know, I don't shy from asking folks that, and I'm not asking that for them to, bracket them in any like, oh, they're a ham and egg or a strap hanger or whatever. But just understanding, like, hey, I want to get you your most bang for your buck, right? And so, and sometimes, there's, like in anything, there's some artists that are overrated, and they may just be, really, really expensive. And sometimes someone tells me, like, hey, I really like that. Help me find something. It's like, great. Here's another, instead of paying $900 for this piece, I can get you 3 pieces by this other artist for $200 a pop, right? So it's a lot of finding out what makes the individual happy, and really finding out, aesthetically, like, hey, if some guy comes in and he's all, he starts telling me, or the couple comes in and starts telling me, describing their house, and in my head, I'm like, holy shit, it sounds like a damn, a goth cave or something, right? So I can't have, something super bright or this or that, or maybe I can, if I can find something that's like Care Bears killing each other, or Care Bears going around a fire doing a satanic chant or something. It's like, all right, I can do that for you. I can find something that'll match that aesthetic.
I think you did have some Care Bears or something in the shop one time, did you?
Oh man,
or maybe I saw it somewhere else. I don't know.
But I did from Tara McPherson, a Brooklyn artist. That was such a great project. So she was hired by this company called Kid Robot, who does lots of kind of vinyl collectible figures. And it was Care Bear's like 30th anniversary or something. And so they went out and they tapped all these street artists and rock poster artists and say, I want you to reimagine a Care Bear for me. And Tara does these great kind of gothy kind of figures. She mostly does gig posters, but one common theme in her characters is that their hearts are like punched out like with a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
So it's just like a hollow thing, right? You know, like a hole going all the way straight through. So that's how she did her Care Bear, with like a punched out heart in the center. And I was like, man, that's fucking metal. Like, yeah, I need that. I need that at the shop. So.
Oh yeah. And you got some pretty kick-ass. I saw some of the Metallica posters or prints that you got. I don't know if you still have them or if they sold out already, but I saw some of those. And then I know there were some Maiden ones that you had. I was trying to remember what other bands you had that I've seen come across. Oh, the Clutch one that I actually have, one of the Clutch ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, and the things with the rock posters is, if you want to know what I listen to, it's what I'm selling. So I don't have any Dave Matthews, man, you know, fucking posters. It's like, get the fuck out of here, dude. You know,
Thick, crushed.
I mean,
every week on the podcast, he just won't stop going on. DMB there.
The DMB.
Your closing song to wrap up the show. Crash. Oh my God. I was thinking about that same exact song. That's horrible.
Oh, Crash.
Yeah.
It's always fun when we end up just shitting on a band on the podcast. But what I was going to say, man, you know, I was thinking about what you were saying about, and you see what I saw and what I listened to, and you kind of started out by saying a lot of this passion grew from the love of rock music and the old albums. And man, there's something about rock, heavy metal, punk rock, where it was always presented in a very artistic, you know, the art of the album covers is as iconic as the music itself. Like all these classic rock album covers and metal and the iconic figures, like speaking of Maiden, Eddie, or Megadeth, Vic, and all the stuff, everything from Metallica to Pink Floyd to all these. I wonder too, you know, it seems very signature to that style of music. Like I don't know as much about, you know, the history of the art of, you know, country album records, but it seems more times a lot with maybe pop or country or certain other genres. Like it's about you're putting on, it's, hey, look, it's this guy's face in a cowboy hat for the 9th album. You know, it's like, that's sort of what sells, like that's the brand. But rock a lot of times is not about like the band photo being on the cover. I mean, there's a lot of those cheesy, great, you know, classic sort of 80s ridiculous, you know, but so many times it's about, you know, something completely different and finding an artist and rolling with that artist, and it just becomes such a signature thing. I think it's interesting to hear that, you know, you kind of got into this. A lot of that was from that initial reaction. Yeah. Great albums, you know, and now that's obviously the music you're into, and it goes in line with the brand and what you sell and you do. And I'm just wondering if you have, if you noticed that in any other genres to that degree, or do you feel like that's really exclusive to rock and metal?
Yeah, that's a great question. I you know, like for the country albums, you're right. Usually will have, you know, the just picture of the guy, right? But that stylistically is very identifiable. I mean, you did it, right? Like just right off the bat, boom, country music. So there's actually modern gig poster artists that emulate that style. And there's still like some great country acts that do traditional country, and they still do their album covers like that. You know, I think about like somebody like Charlie Crockett, who's actually originally from San Benito, Texas, or I'm sorry, Los Fresnos, Texas, down from on the border with Mexico. There's a print shop in Chicago who also is known. Everything they do has that very nostalgic retro kind of look to it. But even like techno music, or not even techno, but synth pop has a certain stylistic bent as well. They tend to be more like a Bauhaus kind of very geometric, kind of concepts on their album covers, which then become, you think of Kraftwerk or Devo or certain bands, they have a certain look. Yeah, but there's so many. There's even like shitty bands. That's kind of harsh. You think about like ELO, right? Like Electric Light Orchestra. When I think about it, I picture the album cover. Journey. I don't like Journey, but I think about that the awesome spaceship that they had as far as their imagery and stuff like that. But it's to me, it's such a simple way of putting the two. And then when you hit, the 80s, when you had folks like Basquiat and Keith Haring, who were doing lots of stuff in music video and punk bands and rap bands and stuff like that, it really is easy to see how the two play off of each other. But you can dive into those individual genres and they kind of extrapolate like, hey, stylistically, what's the through thing? What is it that's still there? Because like punk rock, right? When you think about the Sex Pistols, right? Like the album cover, it's that ransom note style, ripped kind of look. Well, that same aesthetic is still in play to this day. It's been 50 years just about, and that aesthetic is still there. That artist actually who made that album cover is now like a very famous pop artist. But then you can even tie the individual artists to the bands if you want to really geek out about it. So like even, H.R. Giger, right? The guy who did the Alien.
Oh yeah. The concept for Alien. Yep.
Yeah. So he also did an album cover for the Dead Kennedys, the punk band, which Dead Kennedys actually got arrested and attempted to get thrown in jail in California in the 80s for I think it was a Frankenchrist cover, which was, I think it was like a bunch of penises in a field, like with body parts. It was like just some really disturbing. I'm not putting that into my Google history, but if you ever want to kind of check out this weird image,
I know some guys that'll get right on that, Dave. Yeah, well, I'm gonna have my team do some research. Because I think from an artist's perspective, right? Like as a musician, if I'm listening to something, I'm going to be like, with musicians, if I'm a band, we're writing music, we're communicating. A lot of times we're like, oh, that Melvin's thing, or that or that Metallica type thing. We're talking in those terms, right? And so, and obviously, all this music is connected, and not all, you're always borrowing and stealing. Art's got to be the same way, right? And so, I think as an artist, as someone who's really familiar with the subtext and more, I think for the average consumer, like these things all hit us on a subconscious level. We may not realize why we like it. But we like it back to what maybe the country stamp, or so there's a marketing tool, whether it's anything over time is going to be like, hey, this is working, let's use it, and it will become formulaic, I think. But it's interesting saying like these things have kind of been artistically work in the same way the musical formulas do over time, and they all kind of, it's a package deal within the genre, even if you don't like really realize it on the surface. I think maybe subconsciously a lot of us, if we're going to quote unquote buy albums, at least in the old days, I bet it was even possibly more relevant, because you're walking into a record store and these things are hitting you, they're triggering something right away. You visually like what you see, you know what I mean? Because you're as that consumer identifying with that.
Well, that's and you're absolutely right, because I have to admit, it's been obviously since before the kind of pandemic hit that I've been to a record store. In fact, I'm trying to think when the last time I went to a record store. It's probably last winter, but it still triggers an interest to me to be walking down an aisle with racks of records and seeing a great album cover. I may not know the band, but that album cover is going to get me to go, who the hell are these weirdos? You know, why did they pick this? Flip it over, check out a couple of song titles, right? And see like, okay, I got to check this out. You know, here's my $20, you know, unheard, right? Like no clue what the hell this band's going to sound like. But I think that unfortunately that may be, eventually, going the way of, you know, the dinosaur, right? As it becomes, you know, the continued, death or the long rumored death of the record store. Right. But I think, you know, pandemic, unfortunately, record stores may be one of the biggest, you know,
these live music record stores, those kind of businesses already, it's not as it used to be. I think this pandemic has just been particularly horrible for that whole arena, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, it's been weird, right? Because, you know, you as a musician, you're used to this cadence of, hey, I got a gig. We're preparing for a gig. This is what we do. I was on the consumer side of that. I was like, hey, I'm going to go to this show. I'm going to go to that show. I'm going to go spend the weekend in Austin, and I'm going to go see, you know, band Thursday night, a band Friday, a band Saturday, you know, that type of stuff. And, you know, it's quite a bit of withdrawal. You know, I can't, the last show I went to was in February, and it was actually see the Black Pumas in San Antonio.
That shirt. I thought that's what that was. Black Puma shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. Great show. Great band. I absolutely love that band. You know, it'd be interesting to see what the pandemic impact will be on a band like the Black Pumas, which was on a crazy trajectory.
Yeah.
Just blowing up. Right. Yeah.
And just hammered down, stopped. Right. And, you know, and I've tried to like do the live stream, like when a band's doing a live stream, and yeah, you know, it's pretty cool for you know, how many months in are we, you know?
Well, it's so started, like everyone and their grandma was like immediately like live streaming, and it got to be like, I feel like I'm a musician. I can say like, and then you're like, ah, shit. Now everyone's going to ask me for fucking Venmo tips. You know what I mean? But like, that's the new, to be fair, musicians aren't making shit anyway. And gigs a lot of times.
Yeah.
So someone throws, I never even asked them, like, so if someone throws me like $20 or something for a gig I did, you know, live stream or something, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Thanks. You know? I haven't personally done a lot, and I know there was a lot happening in the beginning, but I feel like now, like a lot of big bands, like I think Metallica did one. I know Mr. Bungle just did one Halloween. I wasn't able to see. I mean, shit, that's fucking awesome, man. You know. So, and speaking of artwork, I love their representation of what their latest thing is. It's just this fucking. It's just this outline of a bunny, because it's Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny. I think the art. Everything about the way they handle shit is so badass, and they just Halloween fucking live stream, blah blah blah. But anyway, like. Yeah, I don't know, man. Because how has it affected you? I think it's obvious, like in terms of a touring, gigging type musician, the effect. You as like with like an art gallery space. Do you still do like a lot? Are you able to do a lot online? You have a website and people can kind of go there. Has it affected you tremendously not having the in person, or is it not too bad?
It's been bad. You know, it's been bad. You know, and. We actually started off the gallery online as an online only gallery back in 2015. So we had, you know, we're selling unframed artworks online, you know, drop them in the mail. And that was our business model for about a year. Having a brick and mortar was something that when we started, we didn't believe was necessary. You know, we thought, hey, brick and mortar's dead. My background is in technology. No one needs to go to the store. I'm buying the majority of my stuff online. I'm not independently wealthy. I can't travel the globe and hang out with the artists and smoke dope and, you know, learn about their kitty cats' names. I don't do that. Right. So I'm buying a majority of this artwork online already, selling it online. we then made the decision that, hey, we need to make an investment in a brick and mortar retail space, because that's kind of what we needed to do for some folks to, quote unquote, take us seriously. Right. So we did that, spend several years building a reputation, building a clientele, getting to know people in the community, starting to invest into the community by participating in events and being fundraisers and all this great stuff. And really get into the, hey, it's the holiday time, and, really being a store. We come to find, like, we really like doing this. Like, we would like having that connection with people when they come to the shop. We get to spend time with them, because an art gallery is a great place, because it's one of the few shops we're usually not trying to hustle you in and out of the building as quickly as possible. Right. Folks come in, pre-COVID, I would have a fridge full of beers, and folks would come in and I would say, hey, how's it going? Let me know you have any questions. You want a beer? Crack open a beer, and they're just there hanging out. And, there's a group or a couple, and they're talking, and they want, and always I'm like, hey, you want to learn more about it? Let's talk about it. I got tons of knowledge that we can chit chat about.
Obviously the beer is nice, but do you feel like Dave Matthews band music that's playing over this?
Well, and to one of the things that I will admit is that I do curate playlists for so like there's a Wednesday night playlist, which is usually, I'm pretty pissed off because I hate Wednesdays. So there's usually lots of metal and punk and just some crazy stuff to freak out my neighbors. Saturdays are probably something with a little bit more hip shake to it. Sundays was usually like jazz, kind of mellow. I'm usually hungover. Don't need suicidal tendencies that early. But
it makes me think there's a similarity to like you said, you may not think it on the surface, but then it actually does make sense, because there's something. Yes, you can shop online. Yeah, you can go to Amazon. Yeah, it's convenient now. It's essential in a lot of ways during the pandemic, but you cannot replicate, I think, the similarity between going to a record store and flipping through records and hearing music and being around and in the environment and other people talking about. You're in that environment, you're immersed in it. Same thing with an art gallery, and you're right there. And I haven't been to a lot of art galleries, but it is the kind of thing, when I do go into an art gallery, I am very immersed in that moment and in that place, and I'm looking at thinking about things, and it's not the same when you're just sort of casually surfing online. It's a very, very different experience.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things about an art gallery, it forces you to slow down, right? It's like, what? Yeah, I get a lot of folks that come in and they are, social media junkies. As soon as they walk in, they pull their phone out and they're taking a picture of themselves in the shop before they even looked around the shop. That's fine. Whatever, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. But then to see them turn around and actually look at stuff that's on the wall and see that phone get put away, to me, that's when I know that we're doing the right thing. If I can tear somebody's eyeballs off of this onto this and have their brain slow down, I know that what we're doing is worthwhile. But the social aspect of it is really something that helps the business. So when the pandemic hit, we were at a point in our business where we were making all sorts of investments to make a jump to that next level, right? We were going to participate in more shows. We were lining up artists from overseas to come down to Texas so they can actually have exhibits and shows at our space. We were in talks with some corporate clients to do some showings and hangings for South by Southwest events. So we were really, really doubling down on 2020. 2020 was going to be our fucking year. I had it. We were going to do this. Not so much, right? So it was a double whammy, right? Where we had already had sizable investments in other parts of the business. And to top it off, I have to shut down my business to in-person traffic. Nobody's fault. It just shit happened, right? Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows. And it's early on. Nobody knows it's airborne. Somebody knew, right? But they weren't telling us, right? So as a business owner, the state of Texas, rightfully so, said, shut everything down. We don't know what the hell's going on. Lock doors, boom. We say, all right, what's the worst that can happen? A month? 3 weeks? So I remember printing out a piece of paper saying, dear friends, families, and customers, abundance of caution. We're going to be shutting down and we'll be opening. I still have that paper somewhere where I put, we'll be opening back up on March 15th or whatever it was. I go back 2 weeks later, I scratch out the March 15th and I put March 30th, and I scratch it out and I put April, and so on and so forth. I had that same sign up there all throughout pretty much until September, which in September was finally when our infection rates went down here in New Braunfels to anything near 5 to sub 10%. So that was when we felt like it was semi okay for us to open. I'm not a sanitation expert. I don't, I'm in a shared space with other tenants. We're in a conservative dominated part of the country where people believe that wearing masks is unpatriotic and infringes on other people's freedoms. And I don't care. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get you sick. That's all that matters to me. So we erred on the side of caution. And, unfortunately I had, at this point I did have some employees. Unfortunately, I did have to lay off my employees. I kept those employees on the payroll at 50% wage for as long as we could until finally, business is business. Landlords needed to get paid, that type of stuff. Everybody's hurting. And it's kind of hard to say, hey, Mr. Landlord, I don't need to pay you for the next 3 months because there's a pandemic, right? Like they made their investments just like every other business person in this country. So I'm not saying, and I will never say that nobody should get paid for what they've invested in. So, it's been rough. Since we've reopened the physical space, the physical gallery, businesses started to trickle up a little bit. One of the things that the pandemic did force us to do is to go back into our website, which is comalcountyrebels.com, and give it some attention. I was terrible at it. And when I say we're a small family business, right? It's myself, my wife, and my college kid, and soon my youngest daughter will be in the business as well. So even though I'm in technology, I am not a website maker. I don't know, Drupal. I don't know, WordPress. I don't know any of this stuff. So luckily for me, finally saying, you know what, maybe I should pay for something like Squarespace and their monthly recurring costs to be able to easily set up a web store. And and saying like, okay, I can drag and drop.
Yeah, HTML, man.
Oh, dude, seriously.
Shit, it is. It's worth it.
But the getting the website up and running and taking advantage of some of the powers of the Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all those other, we're not evil, but we're really fucking evil companies, algorithms. But like anything, it's got two sides. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad. And so we've used those technologies that are out there to increase eyeballs on our site, and it seems to pay off.
We've discussed this a bit with various bands, obviously, because it's a very similar thing for anyone running a business now. Essential, right? Social media. It's like it's definitely a double, a catch-22, double-edged sword. What I'm curious. For you, have you seen any particular success on one platform more than the other, or anything you lean towards? What works best for you?
For us, it's Instagram because art. It's a real, yeah, it's such a visual type of application that it's pretty easy to leverage. There's stories functionality in the application, and the ability to promote content and monetize it almost instantly by being able to put a price tag on every single post and having it tie back to your website. And now Instagram, and I hate the fact that I'm saying good things about Instagram now that I'm saying this, but you can really streamline the purchase process, right? By utilizing the tooling that's built into Instagram. We've, every once in a while we'll promote different posts, especially if it's an artist that we're really, really psyched on. Not necessarily because they're going to make us a lot of money, but it's just like somebody that we feel is really fucking great or is doing some important work out there. Or, hey, maybe you should buy some of this guy's stuff before you can't afford it. If it's going to cost me $100 to throw something up on Instagram for a couple of weeks to get some more eyeballs on it, it's really a no-brainer.
I feel like I've heard that. I from a few people that the Instagram advertising has worked better than, say, the Facebook advertising for sure. And you're right, especially in a visual medium, that actually totally makes. I'm sitting here looking you up right now. Actually, I noticed you've already been followed by Eclectic Soundtrax.
Yeah, those bums.
Yeah,
wasn't me. But asshole put it on.
So I did use Google Ads as well, and have had a little bit more success. But for me, being like you said, don't know HTML, don't want to mess with it.
Everything Google's a nightmare. It's so really complicated. Oh my God, I hate trying to run those ads because it's so fucking complicated.
Yeah, and I've gone back. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'm smarter now. I'm still a fucking moron. I can never figure it out.
Get that. Let me know. I'll pay you for that shit.
Well, now I know why folks pay for this, man. Yeah. It's crazy.
I'll take this piece of art and I'll throw in some extra money if you can fucking run an ad for me, so I don't have to deal with it.
But it's certainly something. If you're in any type of business or even like a band, because you have to be your biggest spokesperson, right? Because there's so much content out there. There's so many folks that are trying to get attention that if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. Or if you want it done right, you kind of want to have some say in what's being put out there. But by that same token, look, it sounds like I know what the hell I'm doing, right? I don't know shit. I know about art. I can put in a pretty frame and check this shit out.
Exactly like a musician, man. You aspect of it down, and then the rest of it, you and everyone else in the business is looking at each other like,
yeah. But it's one of the things that I've learned is sometimes you just got to pay somebody, right? Because it's even like when we started, I was like, I've been spray painting walls for 20 years, or I've drawn tons of skulls on my books. I should be able to do a logo for my business, and spent countless hours and tweaking this and the font and this and that. And then finally, I'm just like, you know what? I just don't like my logo. So find a place online where you can basically bid out your job for a couple $100, and I get 40 freaking logo options, and they all make mine look like I made it. So stuff like that, when you're starting a business or you're in business, if there's stuff that is only going to cost you a couple $100 or $1,000, because a lot of shit costs $1,000, and you can do it, pay it, because your time is better spent in other pursuits.
Yeah, you have to realize in that when you're running a business, and that what are your strong suits, and you roll with those, and you have to pay other people to do the other stuff, because you can't sit there and learn every skill, and you'll just run yourself from the ground and be so exhausted at the end of the day. What's the most important thing you do? You're the face of the business. You got to be excited about what you're doing and talking with the people and selling the product,
Yep.
Not staying up late nights learning how to create websites.
Spreadsheets.
Cascading style sheets. Ooh.
Yeah, and I've done in a really lame fashion too. I say self-built. I had some friends help me, but the very first website I did with my band is like I was just farting around, and I literally said on it www good, and it just said world's worst website. Photos I threw up, and like it was bad. Like, and then you look back on that, and at the time you're like, this is funny, and you're like, no, this is horrible. This is like not what you want to represent yourself as.
Yeah, I mean, it's you got to have straight knees, right? To kind of know where your mistakes are, or just things that you're like, what the hell were we thinking? And that's one of the dangers of social media, right? To where you can get fired up about something, and you get pissed off about something, and you just say, what, go fuck yourself, and then it turns into a shit show, right? But it's you really gotta cool your jet sometimes before you kind of pull the trigger, and you name your band a good Rogering or something like that.
Oh, agreed. I am the king of decisions. I'm going to start a business that just says all the things not to do starting a business and a brand with your band, and that's ultimately how I'll make my money. People will call me and I'll say, that's stupid, don't do it. Okay, PayPal me.
You'd make a fortune. Right? You'd make a freaking fortune. This is how not to be in the music business.
I'll be like, everything you're thinking is stupid and wrong. I can't blame you, because why would you know? Okay, now I'll tell you what to do.
But it's rewarding in a lot of aspects, and there's for us it's about opening people's eyes to different things, and really that's something that art and music, or visual art and music, have a lot in common, right? When you listen to a certain band that you've never really heard something like it before, and then you start diving into these categories and different so I'm listening to this, somebody tells me about this jazz punk band, and so give that a listen. All of a sudden it's like someone says, have you ever heard Japanese jazz punk? And I'm like, no, I have not. I want dude, it's awesome. It's crazy. So it's kind of the.
What was that?
No, so we got to put him in touch with Italo, man.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
All kinds of crazy worldly shit, man. It's really fascinating talk. But yeah, Japanese punk. That's what's so cool, and that is one nice thing about the internet age. I think a lot of stuff you would do, you can just go, I'm gonna go listen to a bunch of, like he said, I'm gonna listen to a bunch of French music one year or whatever, and yeah, it's just cool shit everywhere,
But it's the same. It's the same in pop art and graffiti art and urban art, right? Because you can find an artist that you really, really like, and everybody kind of has thematically or stylistically their calling cards. But like you mentioned, that bands borrow from each other. So the artists do the same thing, right? Visual artists are inspired by other visual artists. And so you can, kind of different notes on the same theme, right? You can kind of follow it down. And then what happens with lots of these artists nowadays is they become basically, printing, kind of industrial printing type of art factories to a certain extent. So like Shepard Fairey and Obey, right? It's a worldwide phenomenon. But what he has done, and what other artists do, who have to create art at scale, will hire a lot of talented artists to work for them and underneath them as their assistants, and they're the ones who help design, the actual artwork. But then these artists will then, kind of bubble up and have their own careers. So these art factories like Obey end up creating dozens and dozens of other artists. And yeah, you know what? The guys over at Nevermade sure does look like Shepard Fairey's work. Well, it's because that dude worked there. Ernesto Edenia. Why does this stuff look like Shepard? Because he worked there, you know? But it's really cool to see, you know, and in my mind, from my background, I always think about it like, oh, you know, it was the drummer that was, you know, the original drummer for over here. And then he's now the keyboard player for over there, or, you know, he's now the singer with this other band and stuff like that. But it's you know, like music and like visual art and street art, pop art, and all this stuff, you can really go into those little pigeonholes of what makes you happy if you want to be that psychotic and crazy about it, you know, because like you said, yeah, I'm only going to listen to French punk for a year. I can totally see myself doing that and just being obsessive about wanting to know everything I can know about French punk rock. And like right now I'm on a kick on artists from the Netherlands, you know, pop artists and graffiti artists from the Netherlands. Why? I have no idea. I just like the style they have right now. I think they're a little bit crazy. They're really, you know, they're really hip. I think they do a lot of drugs and, you know, they don't care. I don't know what the hell goes on over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of which, I mean, she's made some, pieces that I think if you look at it through your phone, like it moves or it does something, like it transforms into a different piece or something, which is really cool.
Yeah, so that's something that has really changed the way lots of artists are kind of interpreting their work, right? And this is something that really has started fairly recently, only in the past couple of years, where these artists will create not just works on paper or canvas, but murals, and then they'll have a QR code where you'll scan it, and some of them will use an app. And then they'll create a secondary image, a reinterpretation of the image, an animation where parts are moving. And some artists just go really into it. So Handika, who is kind of obsessed with alternate timelines, right? So her whole thing is about kind of layers of reality and all the different ways it could go. So for her to use augmented reality in her artwork, when you scan it, you're actually seeing her interpretations of those other dimensions as they're layered on top of each other. So it's, yeah, dude, I know. And I don't do any psychedelics. Yeah. Not anymore. Yeah. I don't need them. But yeah, so, but what's cool about the way this technology is being incorporated, is on murals. Like there's this one artist named Hoxa, and what he does is basically like geometric shapes kind of repeating themselves. But when you look at it with the app, it's more like a cosmic engine that just everything's kind of spinning in and of itself. So it's kind of like, you know, just really kind of sci-fi, really deep into like what's consciousness and all this stuff that they're trying to convey, but they couldn't really show you the whole thing because the technology wasn't there. Right. And so the way these artists, and to be fair, and lots of artists still do this, is where the augmented reality is just something stupid, right? You know, like it'll just have the color is blue instead of black, or, you know, it has a joke that you see on the app as opposed to like, which is fine, right? It's like, oh, look, you know, it's this, and then it just says fuck you or whatever on the app, right? You know, that'd be pretty funny. But yeah. But it really is an exciting way that artists are utilizing technology. I know Cause, who's one of the most popular street artists around, during the pandemic, right before the pandemic, he was releasing pieces that were only augmented reality. So they were basically what he's known for, these figurines, right? And so he was going to, in fact, he did, to where you would be able to buy the digital artwork, and then you would view it through an app, and you'd be able to see this figurine resting on your front yard. It was never there. There was no actual piece of art that you got. You got a piece of code that was interpreted by your phone and put in your device, and that'll be $1,000. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh my God.
So, you know,
like the Pokemon game.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much, so there's kind of a fine line about, what folks can do with applications and when it comes to modern art. I think the right way they should use it, that it enhances the experience and that it's not the experience. Right. Because the phone, I think is a great tool. But if it simply is going to make me look at my phone again, I don't really see the big value on it. But if it's showing me a different interpretation or an explanation or telling me something else, then I can see where it's pretty valuable.
It's interesting what you said earlier about people taking their eyes off the phone in the art gallery. I feel like nowadays, if you can draw someone's attention away from their phone, you're really onto something. And everything in the world is on that phone, and it's amazing. And every single, of course you want to look at it all day long. It's everything in the fucking world's on there, right? But yeah, like I feel like even because we're all guilty. I've done it. It shows you're sitting there with fucking iPad, and in front of your face. And Louis C.K.'s got the joke about all these parents with their iPads filming their kids at their recitals, and no one's going to watch these kids. He's like, there's so much better. It's HD right there. It's right there. But you're all, I got to film everything. I got to shoot. You got to do all these things, right? I got to film this experience. When you're actually in a moment with something that's so fucking cool that you don't want to even be on your phone, you just want to experience that moment, like that's like the magic of life that's almost been lost, right? And it's like I wonder, like, if maybe some people from younger generations don't even understand the concept of that. You know what I mean? Just sort of be at one with your immediate surroundings and not have this external connection to everything else, right there. That's kind of cool.
Well, that's one of the things I miss about going to live shows, right? Where, I don't know if it's you want to call it a vibe or a feeling, but when you're in a crowd and a band just sounds incredible, and if it's something that kind of hits me, to where I still get chills, right? Or I still want to close my eyes and kind of just listen to the music. I could be in a room with 10,000 people. If the shit's good, it's good. And then I'll open my eyes and I see a bunch of people holding phones, right? And I'm like, what is wrong here? Is that an old fart kind of mindset? Maybe. I don't fucking know, right?
I mean, like I said, I've been guilty. I try to hold myself to like, okay, it's exciting. Film I'll never fucking watch. You'll post it on YouTube and 3 other people can fucking watch it. Nobody gets it. And it's like, I think a lot of people do stuff just for attention. I mean, it's like, oh, I'll post this and I'll get some likes or some people because I put, that subconsciously at least. And that's okay, fine. But I think it's like you kind of sometimes it's like important to be able to go like, well, let me just like put it in my pocket for a minute. And that's really cool when you do that and you just like you said, let yourself be immersed in it and really be at one with that moment and not worrying about capturing the moment for the future, but just having that moment, right there. And that's something that used to be the case. That's why you went to concert. Everyone had that moment together. There was no other moment. That was the moment, right? That was so cool. I mean, back in the days when everyone was holding up lighters and shit, now everyone's holding phones. And I use that like, iPad example because I was at a Rush show a few years ago. And there was this girl, like maybe early 20s, like kind of a strange Rush fan to begin with, I would think, right? And like, and maybe she was, maybe she wasn't, but I think she was like singing along. Dude, but she held up her iPad and filmed the entire show. And I'm kind of like, I didn't want to be like, the old fart guy behind her, but I'm kind of going like, hello, like there's people trying to watch and you goddamn fucking is just sitting there it's like, just watch the fucking show, man. I don't know if she was live streaming or what, but it's just like, Jesus Christ.
She went to the show to film the show so she could watch it later.
Right. I mean, to be fair, if we want, we want to get into the drug, that could be, maybe it's not bad. You go to the show on acid, and now you can actually watch it and remember it later,
Yeah, she's going to watch the show on YouTube.
Look, I'm watching my own show.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really, really annoying. It's a pet peeve of mine. Because life is, or at least it used to be, about all these little moments, right? Those are memories that, make you happy later when you reminisce about it. And then that whole kind of exclusivity or shared experience of the people that were around you when you went to go see these bands or do something really kick-ass or really unique. And now it's just, like, I've got a lot of friends who do a lot of cool stuff, and I go to their Instagram and I see that they're here, I see that they're there. But some of them, I only think about it for about a second, right? Literally a second, if that. I mean, I'm sure it's less than a second, but I just see, I'm like, all right, that's great. Like, next.
I feel like the only thing that probably held our attention when we were teenagers and that still holds our attention now is porn.
Yeah.
Like, you're at a Metallica concert, I don't care. Once upon a time, I've been like, fucking Metallica, tell me about it. Now we don't care. It's like a billion videos on YouTube, right? But man, you're still gonna watch that porn, Dick.
Either that, or you're gonna advertise your band on it.
Wait. Hey, we had this conversation last time. It's like,
that's right.
Considered advertising your art on Pornhub, because apparently it works.
Yeah. It's really interesting marketing strategy.
You need to put the scroll that says video uploaded on a goodrogering.com. Just scroll across the top, and people are like, a Good Rogering, and they're going to check it out.
I would think I would have made this happen by now, but I failed tremendous. How funny would that be? I mean, funny / disturbing. I don't know. Someone's like, oh yeah, man, I totally bought. I was about to jerk off, and then I saw an advertisement for a piece. Oh man, I had to.
I bought all your albums.
Hey man, cool. I'm down. Like,
there you go.
I don't want to in person and shake your hand, but thanks for buying my stuff.
Virtual high five.
But I mean, yeah, I say that jokingly, but also it's funny, like in a way that the world's oldest profession has moved technology forward, right? I mean, in the internet and stuff in so many ways, obviously, and then everyone now we're always just racing to catch up. The second any of us figure out Instagram's done. Now it's TikTok, and then it's some other shit. I got on TikTok for a few minutes, and I was like, I just put up a few. I can't do more. I'm almost caught up on the Eclectic Soundtrax Instagram. I'm only one behind now.
So
I actually hate it. Like every day, like you would think it's like doing chores as a kid. Like I'm like, fuck, I gotta post on Instagram. Ugh, I hate it.
It's a lot of pressure, because they say that you're supposed to post X amount per day to get the this percentage gets and then it's a job, right? So
social media person that runs all your shit, man. That just does social media for sure. I'm lucky I have a few friends that kind of like will do a few things, but like for the most part, like if you see, like I'll be like Instagram, and I'll kind of go through bouts where you're like, oh, July, February.
Oh, it's brutal.
So one more time, the name, man, Comal County Rebels.
Yep, that's so.
And all the social media is that.
Yeah, so we're Comal County Rebels across both Instagram, Facebook, and of course our website is comalcountyrebels.com. The name was something that we chose to really kind of show that we're outside the norm of our immediate vicinity. This city that we're in does have a checkered past when it came to their support of the Confederacy, and say continued support of the Confederacy. So when I found that Comal County Rebels was available, and it would have to have a stars and bars next to it, I took it just so some jackass wouldn't take it later and put a bunch of hate shit.
it's baffling, the pride. I think the pride is misguided and directed in some people, and I think they might have good intentions and not realize that the harmful, implications of what they're actually lobbying for, kind of thing. And then some people are obviously just horrible racist pieces of shit. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people probably aren't. They're just yeah, that's the name New Braunfels, right? I mean, that's I'm guessing it's a German town, and I'm being real stereotypical, but I'm wondering, eateries there, they got some good like German food, and do they have any, and they've got like a beer festival. What's that what's that festival they have every year down there?
Oh, that's Worst Fest, which unfortunately was canceled this year, and that's actually New Braunfels is definitely a town whose economy is driven by hospitality, tourism, and festivals, right? So we have really just been hammered this year with just because there's Worst Fest, which would be going on right now. So it's a 14-day salute to beer and sausage, right? So it's just great. Yeah, it can get a little dirty and sketchy on a certain nights and this and that, but during the day it's great. You take your kids, you can have fun, you can eat a whole bunch of great food. But that was unfortunately canceled, right, because of the pandemic. We also lost the Dia de los Muertos Fest, which is a newer festival, which was held in downtown New Braunfels, where we're located at. And they would shut down all the main streets. They would set up stages on the different parts of downtown so bands would play. You had vendors and the whole thing. And so that was canceled. Wasselfest, which is a traditional German kind of think like sort of like Christmas caroling, but you're going from shop to shop and drinking some Wassel. I know you're familiar with that. It's like basically hooch and cider mixed together, right? Very good, very good. But that was canceled as well. So all these events and all these festivals are things that are extremely important to the city of New Braunfels. Two small businesses like mine, the restaurants, the bars, all these great things. But then also like at Worst Fest, lots of things like the Little League Club would have one of the booths there that sold some of the best pork chops on a stick in the state of Texas. And so a lot of their money and fundraising came from them operating these booths at these festivals. So those were gone, right? So, earlier we were talking about, the impacts on the music industry and really during this time, especially during the holiday season, what I would say is support your local retail establishment, support your local bakery, your brewery, your bar, your artist, your musician, however you can. Even, the big band that you love, you're not going to go see them, not going to get to go see them anytime soon. Buy some merch for the love of God, buy a t-shirt from that band. Because you can't do much else at this point, right? You can't support them the way you'd want to support them, but I think it's really important for folks to support the businesses that help them really enjoy their time on this planet.
I agree, man. I think it's somewhat of a frustrating aspect of our culture, I think, and it's just a natural hypocrisy that many of us experience. I mean, some people put their money where their mouth is, but I think for a lot of us, it's so easy. You live in a very corporate, and I'm not lobbying one way or another against capitalism. I mean, but when you have huge corporations and monopolies and things, now obviously things are a little more easily drawn towards Amazon during a pandemic. So it's already helped a giant corporation that is already thriving, right? So, and you had the Walmarts and all that, and that's fine. But I think it's oftentimes, and that's fine, but they think it's really easy for people to be very hypocritical and just be like, oh, I feel so bad for so-and-so, and it must be rough and too bad for this and the small business. But then you go fucking shop at Walmart and you buy your shit from Amazon and you go buy a Metallica shirt. I love Metallica, but Metallica's already fucking billionaires. Like you said, go to the local art shop, go eat, don't eat fucking McDonald's, go eat a burger somewhere else, go support a local business, go check, buy something from a local band, because corporations are going to be fine. They put way too much money into the political system. They're going to get bailed out. They're going to be fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Walmart and Amazon are going under from the pandemic, but so many other places are. And I think that's a big, real, there's the voting and there's all these things, obviously, but just the support, 100% supporting those businesses, and whether it be artists or whatever, the baker, whatever the case may be, like, that's the best thing you can do for anybody, man.
Yeah, we were pretty conscious about, during the pandemic when the restaurants were shut down. My neighbors downtown, lots of the restaurants were on thin ice financially, but we made it a point to eat out or to order takeout as much as possible from Scores, and it's not a strip bar because everybody associates Scores with strip, but with Scores Sports Bar. They got great.
It's beside the point.
Not associated with the Baltimore establishment.
No, not at all. Or even one of my favorite watering holes, which is Callahan's, but they have wonderful pizza, right? So during the pandemic, at the height of pandemic, they had a $10 large pizza for takeout, which is really damn good and a great bargain. So sure, why the hell not? Why am I going to order from Pizza Hut when I can just order from Callahan's and just drive up and they'll hand it to me in my car? So we were pretty conscious about supporting our local restaurants whenever possible. But of course, having a family during, as weird as this has been, if somebody absolutely wants some fucking Olive Garden, I want them to be happy, right? I'll be like, all right, fuck it, I'll get you some damn Olive Garden.
I understand that's got to be have to make those exceptions.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just a very confusing time, on so many levels, right? On the personal level, on, even things from like how your kids go to school to having a business, it doesn't really matter what kind of business you have, but, there's so many things that you have to take into account nowadays. And, you can have folks that will just say, they just really don't care, just want to make as much money as they can. I think at some point those things are gonna, and the cosmic, karmic thing it's gonna even out somewhere. But it's ultimately what it comes down to is just take care of your neighbors, because they're the ones that are out there. They're the ones that are giving more money to the local community. They're employing your friends and neighbors. They're keeping kids out of trouble because they come hang out at your shop as opposed to go doing some other bullshit. But it's really is a strange time, and for business people to, some of these folks that I know, some shops that have closed up around town, to know that these folks, some of these businesses have been around for decades, and because of circumstances, they just say, it's time to, hang your hat up and just close up shop. And, lots of folks had to make very difficult decisions as far as, what their futures were going to be. And, we were, we had those same type of soul searching, at one point over the summer, we were thinking like, hey, what the fuck are we doing in New Braunfels? Right. Or like, if we're going to, is this where we're going to be for the next 5 years, next 10 years, or why don't we just go move back to Austin? Why don't we go back home to the Rio Grande Valley? I mean, it's cheap as hell down there. What is it that we want to do? And we just decided that, we worked so hard to get to this point, blood, sweat, tears, lots of beers, lots of bitching, upset people at us because we had titties on the wall, just all that shit, that we're just going to say, screw it, and, we decided that, we're doubling down, right? We're not going anywhere. And we actually, this summer, bought a building, here in New Braunfels that we'll be moving into sometime in the next year. So we were, we decided like, yeah, we're not going to pull up stakes. We're going to double down. We're in it for the long haul. And hopefully this is just like a blip in just fucking weirdness of this year and all the shit that's happened. And somehow or another, at the other side of this, it's, going to be pretty damn close to normal, hopefully.
One thing I really hope is that there's a sort of like a correction, like beyond like where things really boom. You know, people are like dying to go see live music, and all of a sudden, local bars and local bands become a thing that it hasn't been like since maybe the 90s, where people are like, oh man, I'm so thankful to have this, and I want to go out and and I want to go to the local art gallery, and I want to go do all these things that I haven't been able to do. The kind of things I'll go next week, we'll go sometime, and then all of a sudden there's a pandemic. So a lot of these businesses you never made it to are now gone, so hopefully that will happen, and there'll be a surge for a lot of businesses, man. I hope,
Well, if all the things kind of line up, right? Like let's say kind of game this out, or kind of talk about like a scenario. Let's say you get a good vaccine, right? Let's say you get a good vaccine. They get it out to us sometime in spring of 2021, right? So folks, everybody gets their shots, things start looking good. Government steps in with some type of programs like the stalled relief bill. They finally get off their fucking asses and do something that's really important, like help everybody in the fucking country, right? And put a little bit of money in folks' pockets books, right? And help businesses with another round of funding or something, right? Just something to help kickstart shit. And it's not unprecedented. I mean, we did after the recession. The couple administrations ago, they bailed out the auto industry. I don't know if you guys remember that. All damn car companies were going to go the fuck out of business. And you and me and Vic and all the rest of us taxpayers flipped the bill to get those companies right-sided. And they had great years up until a recession, or up until, a pandemic. So I think if things align up, and irregardless of whoever wins the election, but hopefully once this election is out of the way, that folks can put their money where their mouth is and really just try to work together, make things better for everybody. I don't see any reason why this country can't have a booming economy in fairly short order. But if we spend time bitching about stuff and fighting each other and have racist shit and looting, and it just doesn't help anybody.
Pandemic, in terms of the what happened with George Floyd, there's never a good time for that. Certainly a few months into a pandemic was less ideal, but so there was all that, which is kind of that's a whole thing in of itself. Right? And I also wonder that too, if that was exemplified also though by the pent up frustrations and everything of so many people being in lockdown. And so I think that it certainly didn't make that any, for lack of a better word, easier. Right. And that whole thing is super fucked up and needs to be dealt with anyway, obviously. But I think, so that aside, I think though, it being an election year does kind of make you wonder, like, if how different things would be if we didn't have this gridlock going on and all this political chess moves fucking happening, when here we are in the like millions of average Americans who are suffering while politicians are maneuvering to get elected. It's just unfortunate. So a lot of I think the timing maybe of this pandemic falling on an election year may have been worse for us all.
Man, it's with all the stuff that has happened this year, and I don't know about you guys, but I've kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, kind of like what's around the corner. Thank God we're not in a real shooting war, right? Like that, it's just like, yeah, it's like really, like how bad do we want things to get? Like, how much do we want to test ourselves as a society and as a country? Because I think we got enough shit like to deal with right now, right? But stuff like that kind of keeps me up at night, just thinking about like, oh shit, the Chinese finally got pissed at us, or one of their boats hit our boat, off the whether that little waterway that they're always bitching at each other about. Or, fucking comets going to hit the earth, or UFOs are going to take a shit on the White House. I mean, who the hell knows,
20's so fucked up that like all the crazy shit has happened, but like it's such a fucked up year that we're like, like literally an asteroid is going to collide with Earth, but it's going to be like minimal. But
it's a little one.
Asteroid is hitting the Earth this year. And also alien, there was some big alien thing, remember? And all of us were like, there's a pandemic and civil unrest and racial injustice, whatever, aliens. Like, I'm sure the aliens were just like, oh, fuck this planet. Jesus.
They were bringing the vaccine, man. They were all going to be suppositories.
That's what they've been doing all these years, man. They've been preparing our buttholes for this vaccine.
That's right. They're going to be big old horse suppositories.
Yeah. But
that's why they've been flying over Stephenville all this time.
PJ, well, that PJ needs to get back to us. Hey, PJ, hit up your boys if they're ready to do some probing with this vaccine. Yeah, sorry, Donald, you're at a loss here because now we're just right. I guess this is what's going to start happening. We're just going to start referencing old podcasts. I have no idea why are they talking about alien buttholes right now? I don't know what's going on.
So I've listened to nice big chunks of several episodes. So your buddy who was shitting himself while the rowing team from University of Texas was going by. Oh my God, that is just a wonderful story.
That's going to be an Unsolved Mysteries episode one of these days, right? They're gonna interview some poor UT grad that's recounting a time that she was out on the lake rowing, preparing for a meet, and she sees some guy shit his guts out, and he's got like an old man mask, so she's it's going to traumatize her. She's going to have the 1,000-yard stare.
He's going to think it was an alien. That's right. It's some creepy old alien thing just shitting into the river. Yeah, and few people can top the John Simpson stories. God bless that man. Victor was in tears like 4 times, I think, when he was.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But yeah, well, that's cool. Thanks for listening, man. I'm glad that at least that softened the blow of alien butthole. Yeah, I know what you mean, though. It's kind of a scary thought, and I really agree. I kind of think, I hope that, like, as a nation, as the majority of collective people and politicians and whoever can sort of go like, let's cut the shit. Like, let's work together here and figure some things out and get through this. It's like, like you said, how far do we want to test and push and go here? I mean, I don't think any of us want to be, sitting on, well, a few, but 99.9% of people are not like, I can't wait to sit on my front porch with a shotgun and shoot people who disagree with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's lots of things have kind of come to the front, unfortunately, during this time, right? Because of the politics and the pandemic and this or that, and I think one of the sad things for me personally is kind of finding out, about certain folks, right? You people and liked and hung out with or whatever, and then they just say some shit, and you're just like, dude, like I have no idea, like just shocking shit, and you're just like, seriously, and it's very disheartening when like you think somebody and you think it's a joke, and then you find out like, no, they are dead serious, telling you this, and you're just like, whoa, dude, like, where is this coming from, or what's going on? How did I not pick this up? That, you're telling me about, this fucking trailer park Scientology QAnon shit, and you're fucking this. You believe this? Like I talk about lizard people, like I do. I'm guilty of that because I think it's funny as shit. But if you tell me that there's a cabal of entertainers and politicians that are stealing children to harvest their adrenochrome, I'm like, are you sure? Like this is this is what you're going to hang your hat on as a belief system and a structure in how you are making interpretations of the news media and the reality around you and the election and race, race relations and all this shit is through a lens of this QAnon stuff. And it's frightening. But I think it's also, the folks that are impacted by it a lot are the folks that maybe haven't been as, so I think back to 2016 when we really saw the weaponization of questionable media, right? Where you saw all these articles just pop out of like these strange sites. Like I remember my mom sending me links to news stories, and it would be like the New Templars it'd just be, like some crazy site. And she's like, yeah, here, you should check this out. Fucking that dandruff shampoo you use gives you, cancer, just crazy shit. And so to me, when that was happening, I almost started thinking about you brought up pornography earlier, right? But, and believe me, there's a closed circle on this. It's not just talk about pornography, but one of the things that the pornography industry did with technology is really master the art of blue-green testing. Like, hey, what you like, what you don't like, you like, MILFs, you like GILFs, you like teens, you like whatever, right? Like, so they're really zero in on the things that really get you going. So with these fake media, these troll farms and the Internet Research Agency was doing was they were putting out, here's this story. This is fucking crazy. Oh shit, they believe it. So we can now, it's like we've already set the baseline of, what they will believe as factual. So now we can just fucking say whatever the hell we want and these people will eat it up.
Works on the same principle as pornography when it targets your most primal senses, right? And what do they want to do? They want to get a reaction and a rise out of you and have you respond. And that's going to equal, like it always has, right? It equals ratings or whatever. The algorithms respond to that. And it's so complex, right? But I think, so with this kind of thing, it's like, I think like what happens is we live in that. Now it's a culture where that just comes from everywhere. It comes from your mainstream television station. It comes from your non-mainstream television station. It comes from the gazillion sub websites and radios and all the digital, internet bullshit. And so what happens is you become immersed in this little bubble. And then it can actually take, I feel like, an intelligent, logical, like seemingly logical person, and all of a sudden they're like, you're like, I don't even know who you are anymore. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like a Pavlov thing or something, And it's like the same thing works with porn or anything. I really think when you see something over time in the beginning, like, right, if you see some, I'm just going to roll with this metaphor now, but if you see something in a pornographic sense, that once upon a time it was not a standard or a norm in any way, and you're just like, oh, it's fucking disgusting and it's gross. Over time, you're going to be like, that's hot, right? I think it's the same way where over time, a person is just sort of retrained mentally, and you really that person has to be willing to step back and be like, wait a minute, maybe that's not normal. Maybe that's not logical. And I think that's what happens to all of us. And I mean, this is my big argument. I say it all the time. And I've had very little fallouts because of this and my ability to do this. And I think I operate pretty non-biased and arbitrarily on a lot of things. But like, I just think we get, whether it's the initial conditioning that I think lingers with us for life of our, where we come from our family, religious beliefs, economic, all these different factors, right? It molds a person inevitably, of course. But then we can even in a glimpse, right, within a relatively small time, especially under some crazy circumstances like a pandemic and you're locked at home and you're just sitting there staring at your computer screen all day. You don't have any outside influence giving you anything else. It's very easy. And I think this has happened to a lot of people on both ends of the spectrum that once upon a time existed here and then just went fucking skewed. And I see people do that and they're proud of it. They're bragging about losing friends. And I'm like, bro, you got it all fucking wrong, man. This is wrong. That's the complete opposite of how our minds should be operating, in my opinion. I think that's horribly divisive, but also these sites fucking prey on that. That's what they want. That's why we keep coming back to them, you know?
It's all headline news, right? They don't really put anything in the depth of the article, or didn't even relate to the headline, right? I don't know how many times I've been fooled by the whole Claudia Schiffer rocking a, see-through dress, and I don't see a fucking picture of her walking away. But that headline grabs me all the time. But no, it's the conditioning, right? You just see the headline, you go through it, and like, oh, so and so said this, blah blah blah.
I knew damn well about 15 plus years ago, before I moved to Austin, and my cousin had gotten on my dad's computer in the middle of the night when I was doing my paper route and looked at a bunch of porn, and I was going through and deleting all the bullshit once I learned about the old history. And there was that one caption that said, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera make out. I knew it wasn't true, but I clicked it. And now I have a horse video in my mind eternally. So yeah, man, headlines and facts are not synonymous, is the moral of the story.
Well, the old Napster and file sharing days, if you want, you'd log on and you'd see, hey, it's the new, Metallica album that hasn't been released yet. And you click on it, and it's just some horrible, horrible pornographic film. And you're like, what the fuck is this? I mean, those early internet days were just so horrible.
And I mean, like you said, it was really your analogy about porn and what would you call green blue light. You're so right, because it really does prove that you react first to, that's what you're reacting to, a soundbite, you're reacting to a headline. And the problem is when someone does not have the willingness to go beyond that and go, well, let me really reason. And it seems like at least the most, the most loud spoken people tend to not. And they're okay with the headline, and they're going to stand and die by that headline. Yeah, and you cannot fucking operate that like that and actually get anywhere. And I'm not saying like a lot of people don't do their research and all that, but yeah, you see so many people just reactionary, and myself included. I've done it too. I'm not, but the difference I feel with myself is a lot of times I'll post something and I'll admit when I'm wrong, or I'll say, or someone will counter it, and I'll say, oh, that's very interesting, cool. I mean, I'm open to that. I want to learn. I want to see other people's points of view. I think it's vital. And it's, to any sort of progression in anything, right? So to me, it's just stupid to be the opposite. But people love to be fucking right, man. What is egos, right? What do we want to? We want to feed our ego, and we want to, dump slop, as Doug Stanhope says. So,
So at some point, I mean, how do people reconcile? I mean, like, do we have to be like through some cult deprogramming type of thing to where we can just shake hands again?
It sounds so stupid, and I know everyone and their grandma has a podcast right now, so it's not like Vic and I are doing anything special. But that's one thing that I've said on a few of the podcasts is like, this right here, it's not hard. I really feel like if you just fucking talk to people one-on-one, and you talk to people and you get to know a person as a person, 9 times out of 10, you're going to walk away going like, right on, man. The pat on the back, hug, handshake, whatever, have a beer, and it's all good. It's when you stop looking at people as people, and you start looking at them as just some opposition as to some point you're trying to make or some belief you have, and you dehumanize. That's where all the problems become. So I think it kind of comes back to that communal thing, like the power of a village, and like giving a shit about your neighbor as a person, not as just someone who fucking is voting for someone you're not, some bullshit like that. Like even people that are, it's so ugly right now, but like I don't care if you're voting for Trump or Biden. Like if you're not blatantly like a racist or if you're not blatantly out preaching how much you hate someone else for some completely unjustified, ridiculous reason, or that you want to do harm to other people or any of that kind of stuff, and you simply have your principles in line, and that's what you believe, and you're a decent person, and I don't have a problem. It's your right. It's your American right. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to understand why, but I think it's like this notion of just like when people start painting like everyone who votes for Trump is a racist and everyone voting for Biden is supporting Marxism is fucking insane. And to me, like that's the source of the problem right there, Anyway, Vic, sorry, you were saying.
No, I was just kind of thinking about, when we talked to Yuri on the first podcast, right? Just people not wanting to, it's ego, right? People wanting to save face, not admitting they're wrong, not wanting to fail or afraid to fail, and not being open to, taking that L and learning from it, right? Coming back stronger. So, this whole social media thing, you can use it for good. You can use it, in a good way. You can use it in a bad way. The bad way is that we see is that people get desensitized to, because they're not talking to each other. They're talking through these profiles and they're shitting all over each other. So, yeah.
When you're speaking through a meme that someone else created, that's not you exercising your actual opinion,
That's my dark humor coming out and just laughing at whatever.
I love memes. I love all you got, and you're willing to let a meme. I mean, because this has happened to me, and you're willing to let a meme ruin a friendship. And I've actually gone out of my way. I think the opposite of this hasn't happened several times or anything, but I think with so many people, like I said, that are bragging about, and if sure you guys have seen this. Anyone who whatever this, you could defriend me right now, or if you believe this, then unfriend me, or bring it on, and all this fucking absurd wrestling mentality, and it's just absurd. And I'm like, and for me, the opposite has happened where I've maybe posted something a little tacky, and I try to sort of use different places. I've started to get a little more conscious of like, I'm going to use this site for the funny, offensive, fucking stupid, whatever. I'll use this for political. I'll use this for music, to try to separate it, right? And know who your audience is, so to speak, or who is associated with that group of people and what you're trying to say in that group. But a few times that happened where I made a snide comment. I posted something. A few people a few things people didn't disagree with, and they were fucking out, and they were done, and I was a monster. They didn't know me. I can't believe you said, and I was
you were literally Hitler.
I'm literally Hitler. And to be honest, of course, I mean, my first knee jerk reaction, like we all operate on, is like, fuck you, bitch. You're pissed. But I went out of my way to be like, hey, look, and I salvaged friendships. Like I'm the opposite. I don't I think it's insane, because I think we're really just operating off of, we're in a pandemic. There's an election happening. There's this insane amount of just racial tension and civil unrest that we haven't seen the likes of, maybe any of us in our lifetime even. And so I think tension, we're really high with emotions. And I think you kind of got to cut people a little bit of slack on that,
everybody's a little fucked up right now. Yeah.
I'm glad that I've kind of, because when I've actually done that, man, I can't tell you how many people. I know I'm not a great person. I know I've screwed people over and hurt people's feelings. I don't actively do it. I don't get off on it. I think some people do, and that's the problem. I don't like hurting people's feelings. I don't like making people feel bad. It's going to happen inevitably. We're human beings. We do shitty things. It happens. I've got my share of faults and terrible things I've done, but some people live on that. Like Vic said, they cannot accept losing an argument. God fucking forbid. They got to be right about everything, and they'll take anyone down in the process. And some people are bullies, and they like hurting other people. So they do it to build up their own ego. It all comes back to your own insecurities within yourself. So I think there's all that. Dealing with someone that's maybe kind of wired that way, and then they get in this sort of situation, they are just going down, guns fucking blazing, and maybe there's some of the most potentially dangerous fucking people, because they'll just die on that hill, whether it's right or not, And I think people like myself, on the other hand, there's like, I would exercise everything before going down that road. Like I'm kind of trying to do just the opposite, and it's not because I'm some like Mother Teresa. It's just like, I think it's a bit fucking ridiculous to throw away fucking friendships and shit over, some people that have emotions running high at the moment,
Yeah. It's definitely a tough thing to do. I mean, I've done it personally. I've walked away from physical fights because it's just over stupid stuff, right? Where somebody, for whatever reason, wanted to fight me, and it was like, I was like, no, I'm not fighting it. I mean, you want to fight because you misinterpreted something, right? Like, no, it's dumb, so I'll just walk away. Call me whatever you want.
Oh, you're right. And that's what
it's not worth it. Yeah.
A real man does, actually. It's the opposite of that macho bullshit. Like a real man walks away from some bullshit like that. You're only going to fight if you absolutely have to, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I always
You
hate.
know, I was just to mention that, there was one of my, actually a long time customer and a really good customer. Um, we basically had a falling out on social media, right, over politics. And, this is a guy that, would come to the shop once a month, hang out for a couple hours. I knew his kids, I knew his girlfriend, and we just had a falling out. And, he sent, it got to the point where, like, I blocked him from our social media accounts, right? Well, his daughter, who also follows us, sent a message like saying, like, hey, can you do me a favor? Please unblock my dad. He wants to talk. Right. So I unblocked him, and, and so, we just kind of like, hey, we just, this thing just got out of control. We've known each other now for about 4 years. And I told him, hey, you know what? That's fine. I have no problem, with just like continuing to talk. But one of the things that he put on his message to me, which really kind of hit me, was one of his statements was like, do you remember when we used to just talk about art? Right. And I was like, yeah, you know what, like all this other stuff that we disagreed on, it just is what it is. Right. But this was something that was a common interest and a thing that we both enjoyed and were passionate about. And, our tastes were complementary to each other. Like we kind of liked the same stuff, and, that kind of stuff where, something like art was the reason that me and this person, who apparently we had zero other thing in that we would be friends about, made us know each other, made us talk to each other, made me know like where he's from, why he got divorced from his first wife, why, where his kids are going to school, and all this stuff that, and that's a connection that I made with another human being on this planet whose life is just as fucked up as everybody else's. And it was gone in a second. Right. And thinking about like how difficult it is to make those connections and as it is, and to just say donezo, right? Not talking to this. So I think that there are paths for folks to kind of get back together, but it's so difficult to take that first step and that leap of faith, right? And say like, hey, and it's, I'm not a spiritual person or anything like that, but sometimes you got to be the first one to put your hand out, right? And just say like, hey man, let's just, agree or disagree. Let's move on to other topics. And for years, that was the advice to us, right? You don't talk religion. You don't talk politics. That went by the fucking wayside. And I don't even know when or how that happened.
Oh, so true. So accurate, man. And, back to this particular podcast, I remember Vic and I going back and forth and talking about it and thinking about a name. And, Vic really kind of was the catalyst and brainstorming kind of some ideas and the overall, thought process behind it. And for lack of a better way of putting out a mission statement or something. And I think that was just it. Exactly what you just said. It's funny how you can meet someone, you don't even know anything else about that person. And maybe you end up identifying and have a lot of common ground, or maybe you have no other common ground. But what the fascinating part about like music and art, whether it's a visual or an audio medium or whatever, it's like that can bond people above all else. And so when you can kind of put the other things aside for just a minute and just focus on that, that's such an underlying universal beauty, and the one thing that can kind of connect mankind in a way, in that sense, right? We don't even have to know the words. And you said, whether it's art that you're looking at from France or the Netherlands or French punk rock, the words don't even matter sometimes. I mean, I'm going to be like horrible hate speech, but a love song in any fucking language and you still know it's a love song. You can, the melody and the groove and the rhythm and all these things is what moves you. There's something spiritual, actually, I think, about that we can't necessarily put our finger on, that we can all relate to, when we can't agree on anything else. And that's pretty significant. And it's kind of interesting. It's like that was a catalyst for building something. And then to come back around and mend after the fact. I was going to ask you, Vic, when we were at the Metallica concert, I know he said it, but wasn't it James Hetfield? What did he say? It was so great.
Yeah, it was. Gosh, yeah, because Yuri talked about this on the first podcast. It's like, I don't care, what. Basically, it's like you're not, don't care what your political leanings are, Democrat, Republican, that you believe in this or that. Right here, you're all Metallica fans, right? So that's it. Boom, and they just kick the show off. Right?
All one family in this moment, like
yeah,
family, right? And it was amazing because goddamn well. I mean, Metallica is one of the biggest bands in the world and has been for 30 whatever years. So it's like everyone under the sun is going to be at that show of all different types of faith, politics, colors. Everyone is there though in that moment, celebrating that one thing collectively as one body. So we just need so much more of that, so much more of being able to just put aside some of the political things, which you're right. That used to be very much a thing you didn't talk about, and maybe in your immediate family and your friends, but it wasn't. And maybe that was a pre-social media thing,
Yeah.
How could you before, unless you were actually out running for office with a megaphone, putting out signs in a political arena? Not everyone got to be. Everyone, that's the problem now, right? Double-edged sword. Everyone now can promote themselves and can do this and use it for their business for good. But everyone else can also shit all over that business and shit all over those people being a troll. And everyone's a professional politician and everyone knows is a fucking doctor and all this bullshit. And no fucking wonder we're so depressed, That's it. Yeah. I'm getting an echo from myself. It's God telling me to shut up for a minute.
I think you guys are being a little too hippie. So
weed, bro. Well, I just heard you talking about weed, and I'm like, hey, man, I don't care what your politics are, man. Me, a joint, and some Dave Matthews Band, brother.
Dave Matthews. Oh man, DMB to the San Antonio folks, man.
One thing we do on this podcast is we preach about coming together through music, but then we'll just shit all over bands. Dave Matthews, probably a nice guy. He's got great musicians playing with his band. It's fun to shit on Dave Matthews. By the way, do you have a Geddy Lee or a Dave Mustaine story? Because we have not had a good Geddy Lee or Dave Mustaine story in quite a while.
In at least 2 or 3 podcasts.
Scott told us he did blow off Dave Mustaine's cock, I think, was the last one we got.
Wow. I got to listen to that. I will say that, Megadeth. So the album what was the first album they put out that was kind of the counterweight to Metallica? So was that the one that had Peace Cells?
Peace Cells was that was
the second, right?
Second album. Okay.
The first one's the one that had Mechanics. It had all the songs that Dave Mustaine wrote when he was in Metallica, but then he put different lyrics, or they were the original lyrics. I think Mechanics was the original song. Yeah.
So I do love those first 2 Megadeth albums quite a bit. They're some great pieces of American metal that have there's a near and dear place in my heart for those American thrash bands at that time. They're really so great.
Yeah, Megadeth is one of my all-time favorites, man, in terms of metal. And honestly, I'll say from just straight up metal, you've got the old school metal of Peace Cells and Rust in Peace, just one of the greatest sort of thrash speed metal albums ever. And then some of their later stuff too, what was it, Endgame? I got some pretty heavy fucking but they had a lot of poppy stuff too, and that I love. So I love the entire catalog of Megadeth. I can't say the same for Metallica because I think Metallica has some real duds. They've got
Black Albums.
I love the Black Album. I love it. I'm going to sell out. I love the Saint Anger. I can't fucking do it. I just tried. I can't do it.
Oh man,
it's interesting because he does get real political, and a lot of times I'm kind of like, ugh, I'd rather but he kind of just gets a pass. It's like the music's so kick ass. I'm like, whatever, fuck it. Go hang out with Alex Jones. I mean, no wonder he writes goofy shit.
They're buds, man.
So Alex Jones, Ted Nugent, and Dave Mustaine hanging out would probably be fucking horrible, honestly.
No, but you'd pay to see it.
Oh, fuck yeah. I'd pay for you, dude.
I would pay to see that shit.
I'm surprised Alex Jones hasn't come out and just been the MC before a Megadeth show. I want to tell you about these lizard people, but first, Dave Mustaine's going to come out here with Metallica and play.
Is he still buff? Are they still all swole?
Or Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
I never realized he was buff.
Well, he wasn't he advertising some sort of pills, and he like had his shirt off, and it was like a before and after, and it was the exact same picture except in the after he was a little more red, like he didn't lose any weight.
They just created shadow, like airbrush shadow on his body, so it looked like he had muscles. But,
oh man, I did see him pick up Dave Mustaine at the airport though. That was pretty interesting.
Podcast was that in? Donald's going to go listen to one. You got to check out your Dave Mustaine story. Was that was that Mike Watson?
Was it Mike?
Maybe it was. Mike talking about that, and then he had the Dave Mustaine Headbangers Ball story.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Mike Watson from Dangerous Toys.
Service announcement at the end was
Mike Watson from Dangerous Toys.
Dryer sheets, rather. Dryer.
Yes, the dryer sheet story. Yep.
Episode number 8. Episode. I'm getting a funky ass delay. Are y'all hearing that?
Yeah.
I think our Zoom is crashing.
Well, we're at like 2 hours already.
Yeah, it's a good time. AI is like, we've had enough. Talking shit about social media.
yeah, as soon as you say Alex Jones, it's all over.
It's like Facebook and Instagram are shutting us down.
Yeah.
It checks out.
Well, cool, man. Yeah, we're like at 2 hours. So ComalCountyRebels.com.
That's correct.
Okay. Also Facebook, Instagram, same name.
Props on not naming your business a good Rogering, by the way.
The red blue testing on that didn't do so well. So
Can't imagine why. Yeah, I remember
it's so hard.
Here's a tip. If you're about to name your band and you go to see if the website is a porn website, maybe you should pick another name. Hey, whatever. I'm committed. On the domain, fuck it. Okay, so Instagram, Facebook, ComalCountyRebels.com. Anything else you want to add before we sign out of here?
yeah, absolutely. Definitely come visit us in downtown New Braunfels. Check out our hours online because of the pandemic. They're pretty fluid, right? So we'll be open, some days from such and such time, such and time. We might change it next week, but we pretty much are always open for appointments. So if, any listeners want to come down during a day that it looks like we're not open, give us a shout. If we can definitely go and accommodate you guys to come out and visit our shop. A couple of things on our shop because of what's going on. We do have limited capacity, so we're not running at full capacity. So currently we're running at about 75% as per the current guidelines. So that's about no more than 15 people at the shop at a time. We do require face masks in our gallery. And unfortunately, no beer at this time. I know it's horrible. It sucks, but we will have everything else of the Comal County experience is there. The music, good conversation, great art. But we promise that once things get it to any kind of normal, we're going to have a great fucking party at our spot. We are just waiting for it. We've got some local bands that we were supposed to do some stuff that we're trying to throw some money at. And we're just really looking forward for this thing to start winding down so we can just start our friends and neighbors again in our spot and welcome them in the right way with some food, some drink, and just hanging out and talking shit and enjoying some great art. But Vic and Skunk, thanks for the invite. I really enjoyed it. I'm really hope to see you guys continue to grow this podcast. I can say that very entertaining. The guests you've had so far has definitely been an eclectic mix of guests. You've had some very interesting guests and some folks like our coworker Jerry, who is a star of film and screen. So lots of good stuff. Really like what you guys are doing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's definitely been an absolute blast. And I just want to say, it's great meeting you. And when that day comes, you guys want to do some kind of event or something, let me know, man. If I can be, come down there, I'd love to check it out at the very least. I'd play a few tunes, even whatever. But, I just knowing some, having some people in San Antonio that I know as well, it'd be cool to try to get them up there. And
you can play some tunes from the German metal band you're in.
Oh man. Gunzenhausen Clan's first and only gig, and they shut down an art gallery.
Play hits like Cyborg Titan.
Yeah. Oh man, if you like tasteless metal, if you're a metal guy, dude, go check out that band. Actually, it's just called Gunzenhausen Clan, and it's like satirical metal from German chauvinistic sexist pigs, basically. Kind of like Monty Python meets metal or Metallica, but it's kind of old school thrash-ish with real jerks. That I don't know how to describe it, but
it would be like Borat, but very
Borat.
Like a German Borat, right?
It unfortunately sounds like something that I'm going to thoroughly enjoy. So I'll be Googling this here shortly.
Yeah, so I think once things get to normal, I'll head down there and party, have some beers,
dude. It's like overdue, man. I'm really excited to just, and I'm kind of like, thank God, my days of like having the feeling like I got to go out to bars and all this bullshit are kind of in the past. But right now, for sure, I think it's gonna be so great, man, to just when this is all comfortable. In to just kind of have these kind of situations in person, just hang out and have some beers, some bratwurst. We got to come down there. I'm all about some kind of fucking German food now. Now that is in my mind. And you're the man. You live there, so you're gonna treat us. You're gonna tell us where to go. You're gonna know. You won't steer us wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I've do spend a lot of time. In the past, really hanging out at lots of the local bars and restaurants. So definitely have a few good spots that we can go check out. But German food is fabulous. Dude, I lost so much weight during the pandemic, and I entirely attribute that to not being able to get any more Schnitzel or crazy German pastries on the regular. But it's good stuff. But you're absolutely right. Can't wait to go in a beer hall, hear some Oompa music, and kill some dunkels.
We'll have to do another podcast where we can talk about the whiskey hijinks and travel stories.
Oh man, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and Sturgill Simpson. That I was going to mention that, like, when we're talking about like, each genre has their own particular brand of art. Like Sturgill kind of crossed that line with that Sound and Fury. Man, that's a badass album cover. And I've been wanting to get my hands on some art, but I haven't really found anything yet. So,
well, there's all sorts of little tragedies, right? And one of the tragedies was that my Christmas present for my family last year was tickets to go see Sturgill
gig in May.
Right? Yeah. And so it was, just kept thinking like, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to fucking get better. It's not going to fucking get better. And, But yeah, that Sturgill, oh my gosh, he is just one of my personal favorites. But he actually just released a new album of Vic. I've yet to listen to it. I heard
Really?
it's more. I don't know if it was described as bluegrassy, but more of a return to his roots. So it's definitely something I'm going to be listening to here shortly as well. Right after I get past the Kunzen clan. Kunzen. I hope I didn't say something terrible in German.
No, it's really just a dirty trick. You're going to Google that, and it's going to take you to horsecock.
All right. On that note, I think we're going to call it.
Always in strong.
All right. For Skunk Manhattan and myself, Vic, Donald, thank you. Look forward to partying at the art gallery once everything gets back to normal, and maybe do a part 2 and talk about some travel exploits. Talk about that London trip and the cool bar that we got to hang out in, and the street art and whatever, UFOs, lizard people.
All things that are near and dear to my heart. I can talk about all these things.
Books.
All right. Signing off. Good night, everybody. Boom.